No one likes to be controlled. Most people like to actually be the ones in control. Today, we're going to talk about how to be the boss of your money. Let's do this.
Hey, this is Brandon and Amanda, and we are with Grandma's Wealth Wisdom. If you're finding us on YouTube, be sure and hit the subscribe and bell things so you never miss a video. And also, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining these videos. These are live, unscripted, straight from our heads into your ears. So,
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about what you should focus on with your money. There are so many things that you could do with your money. How do you know where to start and what to focus on? That's kind of the question of the day. And our thoughts on this have changed a lot. So we want to rewind a little bit and go back to 2006 when we first got married. Can't believe it's going to be 14 years almost since we got married. And we were like, Brandon had his system for budgeting. I'll let him tell you what that was about before we got married.
So the other thing is being married and that whole idea of being married, as you know, you're two independent people. And when you have two people who are entrepreneurs like us, we both love to have control of situations. And that makes things difficult sometimes. And we still work it out. I think that's a great thing to do. Of course, being married and knowing when it's good to give up control and when it is good to keep control. But whenever it came to my finances, I think the way I controlled my spending is, I think as a bachelor, I ate a lot of like cereal and things like that because I'm like, oh, I have a big student debt. So instead of going out, I will eat cereal. Of course, I drank beer. So I don't know if that really helped on my budgeting because I was saying I was doing this, taking one for my quote unquote team myself. But then I was spending it somewhere else. That's kind of where it was then.
Yeah. You weren't really looking at it or tracking it anyway, right?
No. I mean, I was hoping my student debt would go down, but did it? No.
Yeah.
It seemed like it would always go up.
Meanwhile, I had a ledger where I physically wrote down every single dime that I spent, and I was watching it. I didn't have very much money. I was just finishing college and working in low wage jobs, stuff like that. So I didn't have a lot, but I was tracking everything and make sure that I could do things. And I do things like buy a $5 pizza on a Tuesday and eat it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like to make ends meet. But then we got married and we had two incomes, one rent, things could be a lot easier. And we decided—
2 cars. We did have 2 cars.
That's true at the beginning until I finally convinced you to get rid of your bachelor mobile. He hates when I call it that. But so we started thinking like, what can we control? What should we focus on in our new marriage? We've got this fresh start. Let's do this. So I was like, well, we can't really control like how much you pay in electric because the electric bill just comes, right? Sure, we can maybe like try to turn off lights, but it's going to be what it is. We have to pay it. Things like that. But I was like, but we can control 3 things: our groceries. And we also had a goal not to get fat. We knew too many married people that had just gained a bunch of weight in their first year of marriage. So we're like, we're not doing this. So we could control our grocery budget, not bring in donuts all the time, stuff like that. And along with that, we could control how much we go to eat out. So we'd set here's our eating out budget for the month. And if we were out of it, we didn't get to go eat out. And then miscellaneous things. We just said we're just not going to buy anything we don't need. Like that'll control our spending. We'll be in control. That's what we're going to do. And then whatever else happens, like if we need new clothes for work, we're going to buy new clothes to work, but we're not going to buy clothes we don't need, that kind of thing. That's how we went. And it's come to find out when Brandon and I are so different, what we need versus what we want, we had very different ideas about what that was. And so this actually having like, okay, we're just going to control these three things led to a lot more fighting, especially in that miscellaneous spending category. That's where we would say, well, this is needed. No, this is just a want. We don't really need that, blah, blah, blah. And we just fight over what all those extra things were going to be that we'd spend money on. And I would never want to buy them, and Brandon would always want to buy them.
And if you're watching this live, put in the comments if you've ever been like that, or if you catch us on the replay, write in the comments. Again, have you been in the controlled side or not being controlled when it comes to your finances in marriage or in any sort of relationship? I think that we all have experiences like that, if you are honest with yourself.
Yeah. And then there was also this sneaky third character in our marriage known as our student debt that would control a lot of what we could and could not do with our money. It was a very set amount every single month that had to be paid, no questions asked, and we paid it, and that dramatically impacted everything else we could do. Like debt really does take control. You want to take debt seriously. Now, we didn't say you have to pay off all your debt all at once. You need to go back and watch some of our other videos to find out what we really think about debt. But when it comes to control, the debt is past choices controlling your today and your future. And you want to make sure that you're taking control, right? No one wants to be controlled that way.
Hey, Bev, how's it going? Bev Riley's here. She's saying hi.
Hi, Bev.
So I remember, and this is going back again to this whole student debt thing. I did an associate's degree, and my degree, because I don't know what I was thinking, went to this college or business thing that was not necessarily a college, spent a lot of money on this degree, 2-year degree. And Amanda went and got a degree from a bigger school, and her degree cost less because she got scholarships. She was doing some things that probably brought down the cost, I would think. And I was just stupid.
Yeah, actually, when I was, I think in junior high, I was one of those kids that found a book about how to pay for college, read it cover to cover, and started figuring out how we were going to make this happen, learned all these like insider tips and stuff. So I was very much in control of what college I went to, how much I was going to pay, how the effort that I made to make sure that I didn't go into too much debt, all those kind of things. Control is a big factor with that. But we want to share with you, especially how we've looked at budgeting and spending and how we have, that's changed from just focusing on those three things, right, to thinking through a whole spending plan. And I think our friend Patricia summarizes it really well. She says this: I used to think that the word budget was something that deprived me, almost like being on a diet. That's how we were looking at budgeting too, right? And then she continues, I now understand that to control my finances, I might use a budget which allows me to be in control of my finances. I see and dictate where my money goes as opposed to spending willy-nilly. And
That's
so, I love how Patricia said that. really cool thing here is when you do what we call assigning jobs to your dollars, assigning them things to do. You're becoming the boss of your money. You're telling it what to do. So if you have $100 or $100,000, you can say, you dollar, go do this. You dollar, go do that. You dollar, go do this, and break it all down. That can actually be very empowering, right? You see where your money's going. You feel like you're telling it what to do. And it's a lot less restrictive than budgeting, right? Because you're saying, okay, here's my priorities, here's what I want my money to be doing for me, and I'm actively choosing those things. And I think that is a really powerful shift in how to think about it. It's not, I got this bill, I need to pay it. It's, I have this money, I know that bill is there. I choose to spend this money on that bill rather than on this other thing because I know what the consequences are, but I also know that's being responsible and that's how I want to live my life. Big difference there. And so then, yes, you're still focusing because you're saying, here's 100% of what I have. Again, whether it's small or big or in between, here's 100% of what I have. I'm going to make sure every dollar has a focus. 100% of what I have has a focus to it, rather than I'm just going to focus on this 30% of my money and the other 70% can do whatever it wants. That's not focus, right? That's actually a lack of focus, a lack of control, a lack of being a boss. And so, and especially, I think we learned this really well because we're entrepreneurs. We had employees. We were used to saying, here's your job description to an employee. Like, we need you to do X, Y, or Z right now. And then you over here, we need you to do A, B, and C over here. That pretending like our money was little employees for us really went right along with how we just operated. And what's cool is that your dollars are not employees. They can't talk back to you. They can't go off and do, G, even when you told them to do C or whatever.
Or watch YouTube videos when you're paying them.
Right.
That has happened. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a second. I'm not paying you to watch YouTube videos. I'm paying you to make drinks.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Really has happened.
And clean dishes and stuff. Yep. So that's actually a great opportunity to practice being a boss with inanimate objects that you don't have to feel bad about saying, no, you do that, get in line, and that kind of thing. So the biggest pushback I think that we get on this kind of idea is, yeah, but I have to pay this, or I have to put money toward that. I need to pay my mortgage. I've got to pay taxes, all those kind of things. And my response to that is, yes, you do have to pay those kind of things, but you have more control than you think you do. You choose where you live and what that mortgage is going to be. Sure, you can't move tomorrow, right? It might take some time to move, but you can make changes in that direction, right? You can move in that direction of reducing your mortgage if that's what you were choosing to do. Yes, you do have to pay taxes, but you could choose to live in a state without income taxes or without grocery taxes on groceries, which is one of the things I love about Ohio, right? There are ways to control your taxes, especially if you're an entrepreneur, right? You've got a lot more control over your taxes than a lot of people. So like even the things that we feel like are necessary, we still have some control over them. We might not be able to change it overnight, but we can say, okay, here's what I have control over. Here's where I want to go. Here's the action plan of how I'm going to get there, right? And then once you kind of realize you have that control, then you can start to enact it. Now, the other pushback that we get, well, actually, before I share that, Brandon, you want to say anything about that?
Yeah. I mean, I hear a lot of people, and again, I'm one of those people, the budget thing sucks. I hate having a budget. And I've even heard from other like advisors or financial experts is, you you don't need a budget. Just it brings about restriction. And I think, yes, but then maybe when you have a certain level of income, maybe you don't have to budget as effectively. I don't know, but
that's going to be my next thing I was about to say.
Oh, but then I think, well, then you still want to be fiscally responsible with your business and want to make sure that you're not just spending crazy money. You just might have more things that you use for fun. So you budget fun. I don't know. As you level up, I guess you could say.
Well, so here's the pushback that I get is why should I focus on my expenses? Why should I focus on my spending? Shouldn't my focus be on just increasing my income, right? If I could just make an extra fill in the like $100 a month, $100,000 a year, whatever it is, then it won't matter how much I'm spending. And I think that could be farther from the truth. I mean, I know of people who make a lot of money and they're in even more debt, right? Because they haven't given their dollars assignments to do, right? They haven't looked at where their money is going. And so they actually just spend more and more and more. It's like if you're making $30,000 a year and you end up spending 35, you're going to go $5,000 in debt. What could just kind of happens naturally is when you're making $100,000 a year, you might spend $130,000 a year and you're going $30,000 extra into debt. That ends up what's happening when we do not focus. We do not pay attention. We do not become the boss of our money. We end up in that kind of situation. As we make more money, we actually go even more backwards. And sure, that's not true for everybody, but that risk is totally there. And so it might be easier to tell your dollars what to do if you're making more money, or it could be harder, right? They say more money, more problems, right? You have the bigger house, you have the nicer car, you got to maintain your image or whatever. So then you've got to like figure out how to make it all work, maybe, or you get to still choose your own lifestyle and stay in control of your money and not give in to some of those societal pressures. You know what I mean? So that's all of those things. I just like blurbed out there my little rant of the day. That's really why making more money isn't the solution. You're just going to end up spending all that money anyway.
I put that in there. More money, more problems. I think that we want to like hit it from two sides, right? We want to increase our income, and there's ways to increase it. There's so many powerful ways to make a side gig grow.
Yeah, like you were just telling me yesterday, Brandon got a haircut yesterday. He was allowed to finally, and he really needed one. So he did it. And he was saying that the guy cutting his hair had spent the last 2 months of shelter in place learning how to knit. And the first words out of my mouth was, I hope he's putting those knitting projects on Etsy to make some extra money. Like that's the kind of thinking you got to be in, right? Who knows if he really was?
Yeah, I don't think so. But, maybe. I hope so for his sake. But then, so I think as a business person, it's on one side of making more income, making more sales, growing that side of things. But at the same time, we want to look at, controlling spending, but also not feeling restricted by it. And the more money I make, the more freedom I have over here too. Maybe, or
if you
maybe
choose that freedom, right?
Maybe I choose that as I get to certain things, I will be able to spend it as even I may fill up an extra line in my business budget or personal budget that then allows me to trigger to what I want, something like that. Yeah. But then is that really bringing me, do I have freedom in that? Would you say you have freedom doing that?
Doing what? Sorry. I got distracted by Jimmy Pollard's comment. I love what he just said. I want to come back to it.
Oh, I didn't even know he was there.
It just popped in. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, what are they saying? Is that bring freedom whenever I'm controlling all of those expenses?
Yeah.
Yeah, what would you say? Do you feel like you have more freedom?
Yeah. So the biggest thing in this shift to assigning every dollar and telling it what to do is that we can look through the money we have and we can say, okay, here's our assignment for that miscellaneous spending. And then Brandon can say, like, here's what I want to do with that miscellaneous. And I can say, well, here's what I want to do with that miscellaneous. And we fight more about what are the fun things we get to do or like, what are the extra things we get to buy beyond just our needs, rather than fighting over whether we should or shouldn't buy something, right?
Yeah.
It's a very different conversation. But I totally agree with Mr. Pollard here. One of the best things we did when we built our first business was like apartment hacking before apartment hacking was cool. We lived with roommates.
That was ridiculous.
We would never have been able to build a business without doing that. And it definitely shows, like, you control what you do with your money. What married couple wants to live with other roommates and have 3 cats in an apartment? Like,
who we employed, by the way.
Right. It was maybe not the absolute smartest thing, but we would never have built a business had we not taken some of those choices and had control in those ways. So I'm glad you had a very similar experience. I don't know if you had roommates or if it was just a cheap place, but yeah, housing is such a big part of our overall spending, like how much money goes to mortgage or rent. And if you can control that can give you so much more leeway in so many other areas of life. And a lot of people just don't think about that. They think I live where I am, I'm not going to move.
Well, and I think that gets back into, and why I was doing a little devil's advocate, is if you are controlling at a younger time with your money, and you maybe are living in a cheaper apartment or something like that, maybe that's a good thing to do for a time, because then it's going to bring about some bigger freedoms in the future because you did that early. What? Oh, you don't think so?
No, you were starting to sound like the whole people who say, live like you've never, like, live like.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying that either.
So that you can live like nobody else later, whatever that phrase is. I don't think that's what we're saying. We're saying choose what's important, prioritize, make it happen. And that'll bring way more joy now and way more joy later, right? And then you got to be careful of lifestyle creep. Thanks for bringing that up, Mr. Pollard. Lifestyle creep, it's such a creep, right? Like, we got to be really careful about it, because what seemed like a luxury yesterday can seem like a necessity today, right? And that's where, though, actually, this is why I like percentage based budgeting kind of things. I'm actually talking to a 21-year-old later today, and I want to make sure I tell him this, that rather than saying I'm going to save $100 a month, I would much rather him say I'm going to save 10% of every dollar that comes my way, or 5% or 8%, whatever he thinks he can do right now. And then as his income comes up, continues to grow, his savings is going to grow as well. And you can think through it that way, like, whatever my income is, I never want more than 30% to be going toward housing. You can say that, right? And then as long as your housing fits in that 30%, and you're sticking on track. That's why I love percentage, rather than saying, well, I'm making 60,000, so I can spend 20,000 on housing for the year. Because then when you're making 100,000, you might end up with 50,000 as your the cost of your home. So that's that. But if you kept it the 30%, you'd be at 30,000, right? It makes a lot more sense that way. And I might have goofed on that math a little bit. My apologies.
Hey,
I talk really fast and get excited. Yeah. But yeah, that's my sneaky way to avoid lifestyle creep, is to be working in percentages, so that Yes, as some of my things increase, like I spend more on groceries now than I did when we were eating ramen and, like that kind of stuff in our business. But I'm also saving way more than I did when we were at that way more than I did at that point too. So then you kind of counteract a lot of that lifestyle creep.
Yeah. So one of the things we just did too, from a when we just moved into a new house, and with this new house, there's a lot of things that we want, and um, we just got a dining room table. It's really expensive, I guess. I mean, but not really. I mean, I
Relatively,
guess.
right? For
I guess.
perspective, the last dining room table we bought from a friend for $100. So any dining room table is gonna be more expensive than that.
Yeah. And that was something that I think was um, interesting. Is like, okay, so we bought this table, it was really, really expensive, at least in my opinion, with table, I mean, nice chairs, but we waited until we could afford it because of the percentages that we were doing and dictating to that. And then we'll let it build back up for the next thing.
Mhm.
And we have plenty of things we want to get, but we're also not just going to go and put it on a credit card. And it is seems like, oh, it's not. I don't have control to buy. I don't have to buy all the stuff that I want. But then at the same time, because we waited, and I think this was a powerful thing, we were going to buy a dining room table online. Um, and then there's what was it, a discount
Oh,
furniture place
yep.
that finally
Wholesaler.
opened up. We went
Yep.
to it and we saved about 1,000
Half.
or
Yeah, it was like
half. Yeah,
half the cost, yeah.
because we waited for a little bit, and
Mhm.
now we have more towards the next big thing that we want. So
Yeah. That's
um,
actually a really good, hack for, controlling what you do is just waiting, right?
yeah,
Like, when you wanna do something and your impulse, would say, "Do it now," to,
there you
to
go, dude.
wait. Yeah, there's Mr. Pollard, thanks. To wait and to, seek out ways to be more controlling of that can actually save you a lot of money, or on the flip side, if it's an opportunity, sometimes you might feel like, "Well, if I wait, I'm gonna miss out on that opportunity." But other times, by waiting, it might also help you take it more advantage of that opportunity. That's actually one of the things I think is missed a little bit. um, I was reminded this week of an airplane analogy. And I think this is like epitome of control here and what controlling your money looks like. So I'm going to go for this analogy. I might I might goof it a little bit because it's totally off the cuff here. But so if you were going to we're in Cincinnati. Let's say we're going to go to Chicago today, and we were going to get in a plane and fly there. But the wind was coming from Chicago towards Cincinnati at like 100 miles per hour, and our plane only went 100 miles per hour, we're not going to get very far, right? Or if the wind was 200 miles per hour, we're actually going to be going the opposite direction over toward the Atlantic Ocean. But maybe if we wait an hour, the wind will change and the wind will shift and start going from Cincinnati towards Chicago. And if then our 100-mile an hour airplane might be able to go 200 miles per hour with a 100-mile tailwind, right? That's pushing us that direction. And um, what's really cool is that our money is not like an airplane, right? We can actually control the environment. The airplane has no control over the wind, where the wind's going. The airplane can adjust a little bit, can fly at a different time, that kind of thing, but has no control over the wind. When we look for ways that we can control the environment, we can have even more control over our money and this goes way beyond budgeting. This goes way beyond spending plans. This goes to, well, if I like, let me just use becoming a real estate investor as an example. If all I have in my bank accounts anywhere is $10,000 and I want to buy real estate, that 10,000 bucks isn't going to go very far, and I'm going to need to go to other people and have them jump in with me, and by doing that, I'm going to lose a lot of control.
Yeah.
But if I just wait a little longer and I save up 100,000 bucks, that gives me way more control. I can buy better property. I can get more of the benefits from it. I can do some really cool things that I could never have done if I went forward with just that 100 or that 10,000. That's the kind of thing that waiting can do for you, that you can then have control over the environment and you don't have to worry about wind. You can also imagine, like, you never know when there's going to be a real estate crisis, right? If you're
Or a COVID crisis.
right, if you're invested with your entire life savings of 10,000, and the crisis hits, you're going to have a lot less options than if you were invested. Let's say you had 100,000 and you only put 50 or 60,000 into it. You're going to be in a lot better position and have a lot more options open to you. You've controlled the environment in that way. And that's kind of the next level. After you've gotten beyond controlling your spending, controlling your saving, telling your money what you want it to do for you, the next thing you do is you say, okay, now I'm going to control my investments and how my money is growing for me, and not let some schmuck on Wall Street do it for me, or the guy at the place next down the street that I just hand a check over and let him make all the decisions. I'm going to take control, and I'm going to learn and grow and figure out what that side looks for me too. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and I think that leads into something that really this whole thing is about, is having freedom, right? And I think that we can fall on one side or the other. And, I really like the Dave Ramsey stuff sometimes. But then it's, again, Dave Ramsey is all about cutting expenses, doing all of this. Garrick Gunderson is all about, like, the other side of like, hey, you don't need a budget. You don't need all of that, and just make a lot of money. And I think that that's very different styles. And maybe it's both. Maybe it's both things at the same time, and figuring out, what does freedom mean for you.
Yeah.
That leads into one of the things that I don't know if we even talked about this, but we have a webinar coming up. Do you want to talk about that? I mean, I could share my screen to show what we're doing.
Maybe put the link in the description. So if you're watching this video the minute it airs, the webinar is tomorrow, less than 24 hours from today. You can join up until the last minute. We've got the registration link available. Maybe you could copy that link and put it into the comments.
For sure.
It's grandmaswealthwisdom.com/freedom. But if you are catching this video later, we're going to be updating that and hopefully offering this webinar more often than just tomorrow, May 23rd. So please check that link and see what the latest info there is, so that you can make sure you get that information. There might even just be a replay there at some point. We'll see where things go. But yeah, that's the idea, is as you're building towards financial freedom, there's a lot you can be learning. I mean, we shared some really cool hacks and tips today, but we're going to go even more in depth and give like a roadmap during this training tomorrow, from wealth strategizing to wealth hacking to wealth building, and really like how those things build on top of each other. So go there, click the reserve your spot today, or if you just keep scrolling down, you can just, it's got an embedded form there where you can make sure that you sign up and join us. And again, it could look different when you go there, depending on when you're watching this video, but still check it out. I do want to wrap up with one more thing.
Yeah, we are doing all kinds of fun things that we want to just make sure we are giving you guys, not just great content on YouTube or on Facebook, but really giving you tools to help you break through to financial freedom. That's the main reason as to why we are doing this.
Yeah. So I want to wrap up by asking you to just take a pause for a second. Think about all the things we said in this video. You probably don't remember all of them, but maybe there's one that sticks out to you that you're like, I'm so glad they said this, or I can't believe they said this, right? Like there's going to be one thing that sticks out to you. And I want you to just reflect on it for a second and say, okay, how could this apply to me? Whether you think it's true or whether you think it's untrue, what does it look like for you to act according to what we shared? Or according, like, or the opposite of what we shared if you disagree with us? And what are you going to do differently because of hearing us today? And just sit there and think about it for a second, and then go to the comments and share. This is YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're seeing this, is not meant to just be us spewing out to you, but for all of us to be learning and growing together. So comment, share, like, it made me think of this, or I'm considering that, or I want to think more about, X, Y, or Z. Like, we would love to hear from you, what you're going to be doing, what kind of reactions you have, maybe some of what you think you used to believe and what you believe now. Like if you've had any kind of transformation like that, we'd love to hear from you. We want this to be interactive and not just us talking. So thanks, Mr. Pollard. Thanks, Mrs. Riley, for commenting already. We invite everybody catching the replay to continue to comment. And then, of course, subscribe. Hit the bell, or if you're watching on Facebook, like and follow our page so you can continue to catch up with us on Friday afternoons, which next Friday we might be a little late because we got this cool conference we're going to be at, but we'll still catch you next Friday. We'll probably have a lot to share.
Oh yeah, we'll probably have plenty of stuff to share then. So
yep.
Yeah. So thanks again for joining us for Grandma's Wealth Wisdom Unplugged, where we just talk and it is not edited. So,
and we help you break through to a smart, stable financial future using the tried and true wisdom of our grandparents' generation.
Have a great day.
Peace.